Welcome back to another episode of Life with Lamb. Today I'm here with Julez Conversano, owner of Emerge Gym, Emerge Coaching, and Naughty or Nice Cafe in Ringwood. Congratulations on the open. How's it been?
Yeah, it's actually been pretty busy. We've been open for about 5 weeks now, and I didn't think it was going to be this busy this quickly, but it's been a nice shock, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. I'm keen to get into all the logistics and everything about it, but mate, it's going to be a huge episode today. I honestly reckon we could both chat forever. In the few run-ins that we've had at the gym, like I said off air, I feel like I've learnt a little bit more about you each and every time, and I'm keen to see what I learn about yourself and your upbringing today. I interviewed Cal and Jackson, and now yourself. So it's the perfect trifecta of the Emerge crew.
That's it. We'll knock them all out, eh?
Literally. But they've both alluded to you being the most interesting out of the three.
Hopefully, yeah. Well, I mean, I've probably got some stories.
Yeah, 100%. So I have really high hopes. No pressure on yourself. I wanted to begin with some quick fire questions, something a little bit different.
Yep.
You ready?
Yep.
Amazing. Family and business, yes or no?
Yes.
Amazing. Favorite body part to train?
Chest.
Favorite cheat meal?
Probably burgers.
Nice. Biggest pet peeve at the gym? As an owner and as a gym goer? Maybe do both.
As an owner, it's definitely people not putting their weights away. And probably as a gym goer as well.
I think both are pretty synonymous with each other.
Yeah.
Naughty or nice?
Definitely nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you very much. Yeah, again, congratulations on the opening of the new cafe. You alluded to it being pretty busy. Like, did you know that area was going to be quite busy? Did you notice that there wasn't a cafe there at the start?
Well, to be honest, when me and my sister, we've been in the coffee industry for a long time. So I used to work for my dad's coffee business. So I was there for about 17 years, and we'd always wanted to start a cafe. And when my sister found the spot, I was like, she showed me photos of the actual cafe. I was like, yeah, well, like, this looks good. Let's do it. And then she said, oh, it's in Ringwood Square. And I was like, no way. I guess just from reputation of Ringwood Square, no one really knows it. So I didn't expect it to be too busy. I kind of went there and was like, yeah, okay, there's a lot of people like walking through, and there's like potential, and there's a Coles and there's a Bunnings there. So like there should be a bit of foot traffic. It should, if we open up and we nail the menu, probably be able to build up a big clientele, but I didn't think it would, have this much foot traffic this quickly. So
100%. You've struck me as someone very entrepreneurial, and obviously have opened a gym and the coaching services as well on top of a cafe. I guess take us back to early days. Has it always been something that you've wanted to do? Have you always had that entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah, I think, so my dad owns a coffee company. And so ever since I can remember, pretty much like from 5 years old, I was like always working on Saturdays and holidays and everything, working for my dad and getting paid like $5 a day and all this sort of stuff. But I remember very early on, like $5 was like 3 bags of lollies and a water pistol. So I kind of had that association of like work, money, reward. So I tried to always figure out ways, like through primary school, if it was like, even we would get like the little fundraiser chocolates or whatever it was, and they were $1.50. I was on for $2 and pocket 50 cents and all this sort of stuff, or go washing cars or anything like that, and just try and figure out how to kind of, try and figure out how to always get some money in my pocket, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of those things when you have a parental figure in an entrepreneurial role, I think it really bleeds down onto the kids and they can take inspiration from it. Like, you are a product of your own environment. So for the longest time, I wanted to do accounting and business and commerce, which I have done, but I think it's shifted a little bit in terms of where I want to take it. But that stemmed from my dad. And then my mum as well, very entrepreneurial. So I think that bled into like my own lifestyle, my own thought processes as to how I wanted to go about my life. So yeah, it's incredible hearing about that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I definitely took a lot of lessons from my dad growing up, and just seeing him run the businesses or run his business, and hearing stories about him growing up as well. And he was very, very creative. So yeah, I kind of would, go to work with him on my holidays and hear stories of him growing up and other businesses he had set up and that had failed and all this sort of stuff, and always tried to take the lessons. Yeah.
Incredible. Talk to us about the importance of your parents and your upbringing as well. What was education like? What were the career conversations looking like as well?
I guess I kind of had a very, I'm going to say different upbringing. My dad was huge for me growing up. My mum was also, but I feel like I tried to emulate my dad a lot more, following his footsteps. And ever since I can remember, I mean, it's now a good time to kind of cut back. I feel like I can't tell the story without going back. Yeah, okay. So I guess my first memories in kindergarten, pretty much, I was getting bullied. I used to be a very overweight kid, and my mum and dad. So I didn't really grow up with my mum and dad too much. I was kind of living at my grandma's house for a fair chunk of my childhood, because mum was working and dad was running the business, and he had just opened the business, so he was doing stupid hours and all this sort of stuff. So I was always living at my nonna's house, and nonna loves to cook and I love to eat, so it was a recipe for disaster, and I got pretty big pretty quickly. So ever since I can remember in kindergarten or prep, I was always getting picked on for my weight, and I think that kind of developed me into how I treated school, because by the age of 8, I didn't really like school anymore. Not because I didn't like learning or anything. I just didn't like going to school. I used to get beat up on the way home from school and all this sort of stuff. So I was kind of almost, I didn't know what anxiety was at the time, but I would always have this fear of if I go out to school or anything like that, I'm going to get picked on or I'm going to get hurt or anything like that. So I would kind of avoid it. And then that made me very quickly become the class clown, because if I could make people laugh and I was the funny guy, I wasn't the fat kid in their eyes. So I had a really bad relationship with school probably from that point onwards. In terms of going through high school, I became going through the end of primary school, I became a bit of a larrikin, and I ran away from school, had the whole school watching me, and would be a smart ass to the teachers at assembly and all this sort of stuff. Anything you could think, I was just a little piece of shit kid. And that kind of carried over into high school as well. Although it got a lot worse in high school. It was a lot more physical in high school. And it was the anxiety was probably a lot more intense. I remember coming home from school some days and just going in my room and not coming out and just not wanting to go to school the next day. And I guess coming from grade 6, kind of thinking that most of that's behind you, and then going into year 7 where now you're the fresh meat and you're, the youngest at the school again. It got a whole lot worse, and yeah, it was a lot more violent. It was a lot more intense. And it kind of followed you home, because it would be at primary school. I lived a minute away from school, so I would walk home, and if anyone was picking on me, it was finished at that point. At high school, finish high school, you're on the bus. If you get on the bus with one of the guys that's picking on you, that's continuing all the way home, and so it kind of was more intense. And then MSN kind of made that come home. So yeah, I had a pretty bad relationship with school, but not because of school, more so because of the bullying.
Did it ever come across as people ever considering you dumb because you weren't applying yourself at school? You mentioned yourself being the class clown and someone that people could get a laugh off of. And I think I remember us chatting about it. I think I was on the elliptical and you were on the Stairmaster, how you were able to actually apply yourself in most subjects that you thought were applicable,
Yeah.
and that you actually had interest in, but as soon as it came to different subjects, it was a whole different ball game. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I was always really good at maths, but like I still went into like foundation maths because my friends were there and all that sort of stuff. So like going through school, I kind of didn't apply myself in certain situations, even though like I would get all A's in foundation maths, and I was advised to go up in, I think it was to algebra or methods or whatever it was. And I was like, I want to dumb it down. But pretty much in most of the subjects that I actually was interested in, I would get decent grades, except for English. I like couldn't wrap my head around like forming paragraphs and all that nonsense. I also like when I'm like reading books, once I get to like, I don't know, 10 pages in or anything like that, I feel like I don't retain the information too well. So it was kind of good in like all the other subjects because you're reading and then applying it. So you're not constantly reading. Whereas in English, if you had to read a book, I would like read a chapter and I'd be like, fuck, what was the second 10 pages, and go back and read through it again. And
that's like without the influence of TikTok and short form content these days, where you're just like flicking through and you don't even remember.
Yeah, no, there was no, I don't even know if like YouTube videos were even that big back then. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Was the importance of schooling still very prominent when you were at school? Like, did you ever have thoughts of like, Jules, like you need to pull your head in and start achieving a bit more, otherwise like things aren't going to fall in place, because I'm almost certain the narrative around high school and tertiary education is it's something that you must have, otherwise you're not going to be anyone.
Probably not. My dad like didn't finish school, so he got kicked out of school and went to work when he was like 12 years old or something. So in my household, it was always kind of work. I felt a little bit of pressure because my brother and my sister both finished school. So like that was kind of the only thing that was like drawing me to school at one point. But I don't think I had huge... My mum wanted me to finish, but my dad was kind of like, get a job. Like, if you're not enjoying it, go make some money. Like, so I didn't really feel pressured to have to stay there.
100%. Yeah. It's like the drunk dad analogy, I think. Like, if your dad's an alcoholic, then the kids either are going to follow that pathway or they're going to completely dissociate from it. So maybe your siblings potentially finished high school as a result of seeing that maybe your dad didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always find these things so interesting, like being able to like dissect and I guess psychoanalyze the situation at hand.
Yeah. Well, I think my like looking at my siblings, my brother didn't really know what he wanted to do. So he wanted to keep his options open. And I think like in year 12, he started working as an apprentice chef. He started working as a kitchen hand. And then once he finished, he started working as an apprentice chef. And my sister, I don't know what drove her to want to finish school, but she did pretty well. So,
let's talk a bit about the bullying, I guess. Like you brushed over how, you started to associate school with a place of anxiety and these bad things happening. How bad did it get? And did you, I guess, actually, how bad did it get? I'll leave it there.
Pretty bad. So, when I was in prep, my sister was in grade 6. So we used to walk to and from school together. So it was kind of no real issue walking home. But I would get like teased in the playgrounds and all that sort of stuff and whatever, like fatty or fat boy or all that sort of bullshit. In grade 1, my sister went to high school. And when we walk home from school, it's like literally like 2 roads. But there was like these high school kids waiting for me one day and I had no idea why. And so it turns out that they had an issue with my sister and they're not going to touch my sister, I guess. And my brother he's like a man mountain. So they would never have touched him. So they used to like beat me up pretty bad after school. Always like punching me in the stomach and all this sort of stuff. Whinging me and all that jazz. So that went on for like what seemed forever, but it was probably only about 6 months. And they used to threaten me like, oh, if you tell anyone, we're going to kill you, blah, blah, blah. Um, and then, yeah, like one day, like with this certain incident, it kind of all came to a wrap. One of their friends came down. So me and my friend were playing at the park across the road from my house, and they came and they beat the shit out of me. And one of their friend gave me a black eye, and my brother saw it. So he was like, "Who the fuck gave you that black eye?" I'm not. Can I swear?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was like, "Oh, who gave you that black eye?" And then, yeah, my brother went and beat the shit out of him. So that kind of resolved that. But throughout all of like primary school, because I got pretty heavy. I was like 100 kilos, and like when I was like 10 or 11 years old, so I was pretty big. And yeah, I remember like I was in like grade 4, and one of these guys was in like year 6, and he would like come up and be like, "Oh, look, it doesn't even hurt," and he would like punch me in the gut or all this sort of stuff. So it got pretty physical, and I guess it turned me pretty timid, I guess, through that period of life anyway. Yeah, I was kind of really scared of conflict and like fighting back through primary school.
Can you describe a particular incident where you noticed it? Like, what makes you say that you became really timid? Like, was there an incident where you could have stood up for yourself, or you just let it happen? What was it about?
Yeah, I was on the oval. I was on the football oval, and I remember being super embarrassed about this. I was like, I would have been like 10 years old. I'm talking to my crush at the time, and I got my friends around me. And anyway, one of my friends, Luke, was with me, and Luke was like half my size. But he was with me, and we were like just talking, and one of these grade 6s comes up and punches me in the stomach, and it winded me. And I remember like getting up and thinking to myself, should I do anything? Because I was like extremely embarrassed now that I've just been hit in front of my crush. And I'm like, oh, be the tough guy or whatever it is. And I chose not to do anything. I chose to just like shut up and like kind of like jog on. And my mate Luke, who was like a lot smaller than me, he like pushed the kid to the ground and like was like, "Don't touch my friend," blah, blah, blah. And I remember thinking at that time, like, why can my friend do this and I can't? Like, I should be able to stand up for myself. And yeah, I just had no desire to do it. I just wanted to get out of there. I was just so embarrassed. So.
Did it ever change at all? I think like that story, as well as your brother swooping in as well, did those stories start to build up to a point where you thought that you had to make a change and stand up for yourself?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, actually, because like one of my first memories is the same situation with Cal. We're in the locker bay at high school. It was like first week, and I had met Cal before, and he like swooped in when I was getting teased and stood up for me. But yeah, there was an incident. I think I would have been like 15 years old, and I'd kind of gone through my first few years at high school were pretty rough. Like I'd get picked on with from the year 12s a lot. But I started becoming a little bit more lippy. Was still a little bitch, but was starting to like be like, okay, like at least talk back. Like if you're not going to do anything, at least talk back. And I ended up starting. Yeah, so I would get beat up all the time. I would get picked on all the time, and I ended up one summer just start training for boxing, and it happened pretty quickly. I lost a stack of weight. At one point, I think I'd lost like 40 kilos or something.
Holy shit.
And
oh my God.
yeah, I'd lost like 40 kilos, and I was like fully invested into boxing. Like every day I was up at like 4:30 or 5 a.m. before school, running, skipping. At lunchtime, I would do like, if we couldn't get into the gym at school, I would like run the oval and stuff. And then after school, I would catch 2 buses and a train to go to boxing training. But I remember like one of these guys. So in the year before that, there was like another incident. But one of these guys actually, he like when I was down at my locker, he ran up from the side and kneed me in the temple, and it left me pretty rattled for a little bit. And I remember like the next year when I had come back and I was in shape and I had all this newfound confidence and I was sparring every day. So now conflict wasn't scary. I was just like looking at him, waiting for him to do something. And I kind of like switched the dynamic of like I was sort of becoming the aggressor in situations. And then, yeah, there was a few incidences where like I would stand up for myself and all of a sudden it all just stopped pretty much.
So boxing, what inspired it? I guess like all of a sudden you just picked up boxing. Was that the catalyst for, okay, this is like my beginning, this is what's going to change my life for the better?
Honestly, it was, have you seen Rocky?
I have.
Yeah, it was. So the year before, like I think I would have been like 14, my sister and my brother got me a boxing bag for Christmas. And it sat in the garage for like a year and it did nothing. I'm like, what am I going to do with a boxing bag? I had like photos of Arnold and all this sort of stuff. And I kind of always envisioned being a bodybuilder. And even though like I was completely overweight and everything, that was always what my goal was. And then I like watched Rocky and like I felt like I could relate to Rocky. And then so I watched Rocky 1 and then I'm like, I have to watch them all. So I watched them all and I was like, what? And then by Rocky 3, his body is like just as good as Arnold's. So I'm like, maybe this is how I get that body. So I did it, I think, at the start just for more of a aesthetics purpose. And then I felt like every time I would train, I could just feel like it would relieve so much aggression and frustration. And then it was so addictive because I was so angry all the time that I was just boxing and I was probably overtraining. But I loved it.
Yeah. It is a true like underdog story as well, I would say. Is that
Rocky?
Yeah, Rocky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So does that aspect poke out to you as well?
Well, he was the underdog. He was Italian, so when I was boxing, I wanted to be the Italian stallion, just like Rocky. He had a ripper physique. He met the love of his life. It was like all the things you kind of want in your life, and at the same time, he became one of the world's best boxers in the movies. And I was like, well, maybe I could do that. So I very soon after starting, I kind of shifted to wanting to be the heavyweight champion of the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just like that.
I was probably about 6 months into it because I was sparring pretty consistently. I was sparring with some pretty good boxers at the time. I guess I didn't realize how far that gap would have been. But yeah, I kind of just envisioned my life was like a movie, just like Rocky's. So.
And what was that gap like? And obviously you're not boxing now.
No.
But what was that whole journey like, and when did it come to an end?
So I guess there was also my dad. So my dad was a 10 times Golden Gloves champion when he was growing up. So he was the one that kind of showed me Rocky because he used to like always watch some boxing, like whatever old fights and stuff that was on. And he was the one that showed me Rocky. And he was the one that like kind of pushed me into boxing and everything as well because my mum hated it. And my dad was like, oh, like you can train, like do it. He's like, it's not a good sport, but just go for it. I've forgotten the question. I'm sorry.
I guess like the whole boxing journey and everything. Yeah. What made you stop?
Oh, what made me stop? Yeah. So yeah. I was born with one kidney. So that's why I was saying that my dad was involved. So my dad would always say, you've got one kidney, like be careful, because the wrong body shot and you're toast pretty much. And then, so that was always in the back of my head, but I was always just an arrogant little kid. And I was like, Dad's got no idea. Like, I know what's going on. I'm going to be the best. And I never got hit in the kidney. So it was kind of like, until you experience that real pain, you don't know what it's like. You kind of just think you'll bounce back all the time.
So did it come to that kidney shot?
No, it didn't come to that kidney shot. No, not that. But me and my coach had a bit of an argument one day. So I was training for a fight for a few months, and then he pulled me out of the fight. And I never really got an explanation for it. So I was kind of a bit shitty. I was a bit shitty one night, and I was being a bit of a smart ass, and he was like, "Oh, you need to learn to block this punch," sort of thing. And I was like, whatever. Like, so we were just sparring. I was getting probably a little bit too aggressive. And then he chucks this guy in the ring, and he's like, "You need to keep your arms behind your head," to me. And so I'm like, once again, thinking, at this point I probably should just like got out of the ring. But I'm like, okay, like I'll prove that I can do this. And so I put my arms behind my back, and I'm trying to like dodge for one full round, and I'm just getting clobbered from this other guy. My ears are ringing. I'm bloodied up. Like my nose is all it wasn't busted, but it was like bleeding both nostrils, and just I would have had a concussion. And I remember just like sitting outside the gym for probably about an hour after training that night before I drove home, because I had such a headache. And I was like, I don't know if this is really like there was no reward. Like I didn't have a fight. It wasn't for a belt. It was just this is the training to get to there. And so I'm kind of second guessing it all, and then I'm thinking, maybe my dad's right. Like maybe this isn't a good sport. Like maybe I will actually get brain dead and all this stuff. Because we were fighting against I was in the super heavyweight category, so I'm fighting against guys who can hit hard. And anyway, I end up driving home, and I remember like later that night, I'm trying to read a piece of paper, and it's taken me like 10 minutes to read this one A4 piece of paper, and I'm like, no, like this has got to stop, sort of thing. So
you came to that realization. I guess like to summarize, it seems that there's been this upbringing story where you unfortunately have been picked on because of your weight, and kids can be so nasty. I feel like I mention this all the time. Like there's always that one kid that is potentially picking on you or like doubting you. And then you've found boxing as this like outlet to potentially turn your life for the better and give you some sort of control in your life. You were saying how the punching allowed you to be a bit more aggressive and let that out and have some sort of way to express it or get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
For some people it's verbal, for some people it's that physical aspect of whether it's gym or training for something as well. So incredible. Do you have any, I guess, like have you done much reflection upon the overweight aspect of your life? Like it's obviously out of your control because you're living with Nono and you love food as well, and by all means, like that's fine. But as kids and how nasty they can be, do you have any advice for people who have gone through a bullying that has gotten that bad?
Do I have any advice? That's a great question. I've never really thought about it. I guess at a certain point, like up until a certain point, you probably can't do much about it. Like you're eating what your parents are giving you or what's in front of you. I guess, yeah. And I don't think I was, because I would play football and stuff like that. So I guess I was still active, but still eating way too much. I guess in high school though, just starting something, and when you're a teenager, it's still kind of easy to lose weight and change your body. It's a lot easier than when you're older. So yeah, just starting something and just realizing it's going to take a little bit of time and it doesn't need to be perfect. So
definitely. Let's move into, I guess, the post-schooling period.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know where you wanted to take your life? When did it emerge and naughty or nice pop into the picture?
So post school, I'd been like asked to leave school a few times and then finally got kicked out the last time. So I never finished school. So it's midway through the first semester of year 12 and I have nothing. Like at the time I was washing dishes at 2 restaurants. So I really had nothing to fall back on. And so Dad's like, well, you're not staying at home. So I think I got asked to leave on like the Thursday. And I was at work on Friday at Dad's. He's like, you'll learn to work here until you find something else to do. So I just kind of worked there for the next like 12 or 15 years or whatever it was at that point.
Yeah, I think when I interviewed Cal as well, he mentioned the idea of time and money and how important that is and where you expend your money. He talked about how he was putting in all these hours at Hungry Jack's and only getting X amount of money, but not like a lot for the amount of time that he was putting in. Is that something that came across for you?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I had dropped out of school when I was 16 for about 6 months, and I was working at my dad's. I wanted to learn how to fix coffee machines, and I mean at the time it was like $50 a day or something like that. This is like, I don't know, almost 20 years ago now. So it was like a real apprentice wages. But then on top of that, I was working at a restaurant at night time and I was washing dishes. And I think I was only getting paid like maybe $10 an hour or something like that. So I was working like, I would end up taking home like $600 a week. So I've got no idea what's that. I was working like almost 70 hours a week to get $600. So yeah, like I definitely can relate to that. Like it was a lot of work for not much.
And did that ever strike the chord that, hey, like there must be something a bit more than this? Like I should be able to put more time or less time into something to gain a bit more?
Well, yeah, but at the time I was still boxing. So at that time I was like, well, you'll win millions of dollars becoming the world champion one day and you'll never have to wash another dish in your life. I don't think it was like probably until my mid-20s that I kind of reassessed the whole working model. And then, yeah, like working for an hourly rate.
What did that look like? And what event caused that like epiphany to happen?
So I was working in my dad's coffee business and I was in charge of all the servicing at that time. So navigating service calls and all this sort of stuff. And I started thinking to myself, like I was getting paid a salary and I was thinking to myself, well, how can I generate more wealth? Like I want to buy a house and I wanted to, I wasted a bunch of money on a stupid car at that time, but I wasn't the best at spending my money, but I wanted to figure out how to make more of it so I could buy the things I liked, essentially. And yeah, I just kind of thought of like ways to generate wealth and how to make myself more valuable to any business. Because at the end of the day, if you can generate, X, well, you should be able to get paid Y. So that was how my thought process started to become. And yeah, I guess that kind of still just carries on to now.
I think we're sold this narrative that education is so important, which don't get me wrong, education is very, very important. But then I think the added layer of tertiary education has even more importance sometimes. And we are sold the narrative that, you should go there because that's going to guarantee you a secure job and it's going to establish a really stable future for yourself. Did you ever look at the fact that, hey, I haven't quite finished these sorts of things? That means I'm not going to be able to create value for myself?
I did. Yeah, I did probably a little bit younger, before I realized just generating revenue is probably more valuable for me than going and getting a degree. I did, when I was a little bit younger, used to think that I had missed out by not going to university, but at the same time, I had no idea what I would have studied. Like unless it was like, drama or maths or something like that, I probably wouldn't have been too invested in it anyway. But that was probably short-lived. Yeah, I didn't really like the school system too much. Didn't really I mean, there was a little moment in time where all my friends were going out on a Thursday night and I would have to go straight from the nightclub to work. That I thought, maybe I should go to university to fit in with everyone's lifestyle. But that was the extent
Probably
of
the
it.
extent of it.
Yeah.
And like, that's such a short, or that's not even like that big of a opportunity that you're missing out on as well. I guess like, yes, social belonging and hanging out with people is super important. But when you're establishing a life for yourself, I think that takes priority as well. And you mentioned sort of the friendship with Cal. I think that's one of the reasons why you guys have been able to establish such a incredible gym and an incredible business model. Can you talk to us a bit about your relationship with the two between the two of you?
Yeah, for sure. So I met Cal pretty early on. I think we've been friends for like 20 years now, or maybe a little bit longer actually. Cal's just always been a really solid guy. Like, no bullshit. What you see is what you get. Really loyal and always been. I guess like I didn't really see it growing up, but looking backwards, I can definitely see it. Really, really intelligent. Even when we were like, we would have been like maybe 16 or 17. I think we were working one summer, and he was working at, I think, his brother-in-law's concrete company, and I was working at my dad's. And we were talking about saving up for when we were 18 and buying cars and this and that. And he wanted to get a Supra and I wanted to get a Skyline and all this sort of stuff. So we always kind of had similar goals that kind of, I feel like they always drove me and kept me a little bit more accountable. I don't know like how it worked with Cal, but he was always so switched on, like always one step ahead. Like, we were fresh 18 and he started a bank account which had like some super savings thing to buy a house. I'm getting paid and I'm like, well, where am I spending? I can't spend my wage fast enough. And Cal's already like thinking about a house. And then I think like at one point, it might have only been like a year or two after that, he's talking about his second house. And I'm like, well, I'm thinking to myself, saving $50 a week is probably not going to get you a house. Do you know what I mean? But like, he understood the interest structure and like how much more that $50 was going to get him. But then, yeah, like he was always the friend that like if I ever had an issue, didn't matter what time of night it was, pick up the phone, give him a call. You know, he'd be at my house or I'd be at his house, and yeah, no, it was good.
Incredible. I think like from this morning, you could. I mean, I feel like Cal is a very intelligent person, and the way that you describe him is how I see him as well. And I haven't even known him 20 years, but I think this morning when you guys were doing the dumbbell content, when you picked out the 50 because that meant that you would have to do 55 as well. Like those little things really struck out to me. I was like, oh my God, like I didn't even think of that. Yeah. But he saw that and like knew that was the next step up.
Yeah. Yeah. He is really, really, I know he doesn't look it, but he is a really smart guy. But it's also been really relieving him being my business partner in the sense of I might come up with ideas and have no idea where to start or no idea where to execute or whatever. And I'll like say, Cal, we should do this. And this is especially early on. Like, Cal, let's do this, right? And he'll be like, I can see him mulling it over, but that's about the extent of the reply I would get. And then the next day or the next week or whatever, he's like, all right, if we do this, this, and this, we can achieve this. And I would have no idea how to even look for this, this, and this. So he's really, really intelligent guy.
Yeah, describe your like relationship with one another in terms of the business sense, and maybe talk about how emerged.
Yeah. So I guess like when we were 20, so post boxing, starting to get life going in a different direction, starting to bodybuild, I guess. And I lived in Warrenwood and Cal lived in Croydon, and we would train in Mooroolbark, 5 times a week, and pretty much bro split and all that jazz, getting shredded for stereo. And one day, our gym was closed. It was Boxing Day 2021. and the gym was closed. And we're like, well, we need to train. It's like Monday, we need to train chest. Where are we going? So we're like Googling, and the only gym that's open is Dandenong Doherty's. So it's like 45-minute drive, but we're like, all right, let's go. So we've gone to this gym, and it's like revolutionary. Like, it is so much different to Phoenix where we were training. It's like, okay, this is an actual bodybuilding gym. Like this, they had like hammer strength and plate loaded machines and all this sort of stuff that was different to where we were training. But I guess we didn't even realize that there was a difference in gyms at that point. And not only that, we're looking at like all these bodybuilders there. And like, we were like some of the bigger guys at Phoenix, and now we've walked into this gym and we're the smallest guys in this gym. And it was like a light bulb moment. Like, there is no gyms like this anywhere near where we are. Like, we've had to drive 45 minutes to here. And it wasn't really so much of like a business idea for us at the time, but it was like how cool would it be to open a gym, like a good gym on this side of town. So that's when the idea kind of started. And then I would always, like, Cal and I would always just say, oh, like, for the next 10 years, we'd be like, where's that gym? Like, where's, you know, when are we going to open that gym sort of thing? And then one day, like, it was during COVID, and I was actually just buying a heap of gym equipment for my garage. But I'd kind of run out of room, and I was, like, thinking about whether I should hire out a little factory and start putting like some gym equipment in there. So I'm going wild on Marketplace and on the internet trying to find all this gym equipment. I think I even messaged Jackson and I was like, oh, like, would you train here if I got this like little factory sort of thing? And then Jackson was like, yeah, for sure. And then one day I was like driving through the city. It was like one of the lockdowns. There was a strike on, and there was the CM EU or whatever, all the tradies, the union strike.
Yeah.
And so I'm driving, and like it's taking forever to get to this job, and I've just gone, why don't we look at like gyms? Like, why don't we start our gym now? So I called Cal, and I'm like, oh, Cal, like, it's time. And he's like,
I remember him saying that.
he's like, because at that point, like, we hadn't seen each other for a long time because of like the lockdowns and everything. And he's like, it's time for what? Like, and I'm like, because with most things, especially at Emerge, I have to pitch it to Cal, right? I have to pitch it to Cal and then kind of at least get him on the line. So I'm like, we should look at opening a gym. Like, we should look at opening that gym towards like, you know, around like Croydon or whatever. Because at that time there was a couple more gyms, but there still wasn't an abundance of gyms that style. So he's like, yeah, maybe it is. And like, that was all I needed. So that night, I'm driving to see factories that are for lease. Like, there was a big factory in Lilydale that I went to go see, and that was kind of where I thought we were going to start. And I didn't know if I had Cal completely sold yet. So then I'm staying up most nights for the next few weeks until about 2 a.m. And I'm like, this is how much it would cost to buy all this equipment. This is how much it would cost to deck out the flooring. This is how much it will cost to get the mirrors and all this sort of stuff, and sending it to Cal and getting quotes from companies and stuff. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm already doing all the work. Like, he's not going to say no, sort of thing. And then, he was all in. He's like, well, we can do this better. And so then he like put a little twist on it all. And, I think it was a couple of weeks after that we got Jackson on board, and then it was, you know, meetings at my house during lockdown, and we're open about 6 months later.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Such an incredible story. Yeah, I can't get over it. And I remember Cal telling me this perspective as well, but it's so nice to hear it from yours. And I can sort of see the dynamic in your relationship. You're like the little idea generator, and Cal's like the logistics man behind all of it. Where does Jackson fit into this, and how did you guys meet?
So I met Jackson at Christmas carols, actually.
No way.
Yeah. I met.
Really?
Yeah. So this is another story in and of itself. Do we deep dive?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's go right into it.
So
That's so wholesome.
so at the time, I don't even know how. So do you know Kenny?
Yes. Yeah,
So Kenny's ex-wife's sister
yeah.
is friends with Tara, who's my wife, and Emmy.
Okay.
Right. So there's a big connection here.
Yeah.
Right. I was very involved with Beth in the sense that like I would get invited to like family dinners and all this sort of stuff, and that's how I met my wife. And anyway, Beth invited me to Christmas carols one year, and I'm like, oh yeah, like okay, like I'll come to Christmas carols, like whatever. Didn't think too much of it. And then we were at Christmas carols, and after Christmas carols, they're like, oh, let's go out for dinner. And so I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool, no dramas. And Emmy and Jackson are there, and Jackson's is another big dude. And at the time, I was like right into bodybuilding, so we just like hit it off at dinner. We were just like talking about like weightlifting and bodybuilding, and at the time Jackson was going to compete in like 3 weeks in a powerlifting comp and all this sort of stuff. And then Jackson, was it Jackson or maybe it was Kenny? I don't remember who, but someone was like, oh, we should do like a session together 1 week. So at the time I was like, okay, like let's do a session on Sunday, and we'll train like chest and arms, and we'll go out and get a pizza. So that became a thing. It was like pizza Sundays every Sunday. And it was like 1 week in, and like I wasn't a power lifter, but I was like doing in my program at the time squats and bench press. And so Jackson's like, oh, let's see your bench. He's like, I'll see if I can improve it. I'm like, all right, no stress. So we did this bench session together, and he like kind of altered a couple of things, and I hit a PB on bench that night, which was not planned, and I had bench the next day with my gym partner. But after that, Jackson kind of planted the seed. He's like, you should do this powerlifting comp. I'm like, no, like I'm not a powerlifter. I've got no idea like how that would go. And then we saw each other the next week, and he's like, you should do this powerlifting comp. And I'm like, okay, like whatever. Anyway, halfway through that session, so we've like known each other for like a week and a half, 2 weeks or whatever. This is around Christmas time. And I was working right through. I was on call fixing coffee machines and all this. So normally what I would do is I would take my leave like in January or February. And I was planning to go to Thailand and do a big training camp over there. And so Jackson's like, oh, like, how's your holidays? And I'm like, oh, I'm not on holidays at the moment. Like, I'll go on holidays in a few weeks or a month or so or whatever. And Jackson was like, oh, like, do you want to like go to America? Oh, no, sorry. He was like, oh, would you, like, what kind of holiday are you going on? I'm like, oh, I'm going to go on, like, a training camp in Thailand. And then he was saying how he went to America and he, like, trained with this guy, Kirk, and at Gold's and all this sort of stuff. And we were kind of going back and forth. And then he was like, oh, like, would you go to America? And I was like, yeah, I'd go to train for 3 weeks at Gold's Gym, like, for sure, 100%. So we ended up competing at this powerlifting comp a couple of weeks later. And then I think it was like that week we were in America, we were in California, and we were living it up for 3 weeks. It was literally just like training. We were just like training chicken and rice like 5-6 times a day, and we'd have a few pizzas for a cheat meal, and it was really, really fun.
I fucking love the gym community because of that, because it's just like you guys bonded so heavily over it.
Yeah.
I think, it's about finding that purpose in something that you do. So for you two, it was like the bodybuilding / powerlifting, and you guys just like gelled and went on holiday, and now you're business partners essentially. So it's an incredible journey.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Like there was some funny stories. Funny stories that one night we were playing like beer pong, and I'd never seen, like, I mean, at that point I didn't really know Jackson, but I kind of thought he would be like the typical 19 or 20-year-old or whatever he was, but he wasn't a big like drinker by any means, but like it was just some funny stories. We'll go into them another time, but
off air. Hey, I guess like we juxtapose that with your upbringing, like it seems that you felt pretty anxious and almost lonely in a sense because of the overweight factor, to now finding friendships that are really, really powerful, and even starting businesses with those friends. Can you describe that journey, or can you summarize that journey for us?
I think as bad as my childhood was and as bad as school was, I wouldn't change it. It did mold me into the way that I kind of approach most things, which is, when I ended up bodybuilding and did my first comp in 2015. But that whole prep, it was like I had a chip on my shoulder because people would say that I wouldn't be able to do it. And I was like, all right, like that's enough. Like I'll do it now. And I think like the anxiety side of things, it kind of left soon after. I mean, there may be some anxiety about some other issues or when life's like crazy and full on, but I'm not really too worried about what people think anymore.
Incredible. Jeez, where to go from here? I guess like you've become this business owner, and I guess from your story the other day where you were up at, what was it, like 3 a.m? Doing your leg session?
Yeah. There's been a few days I've had to get up at like 2:30 to fit training in.
Can you talk to us a bit about your day in the life? Like, what does it comprise of? You're running Emerge and you're running Naughty or Nice.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like?
On a typical day, I'm probably getting up in between 3 or 4 at the moment. It depends. Like every day is a little bit different, but on a typical day, I'm probably getting up at 3 or 4 o'clock, smashing down a shake, going and training for a couple of hours, getting home, having a shower, getting to the cafe by like 6:30, the latest. Trying to get there at 6, but it's 6:30 the latest now. Tuning the coffee machine in, making coffees until 3. Then most days after that, so we clean up the cafe obviously and get out of there by 4. Most days after that, I've got some kind of coaching or, some project that I'm working on that I have to get to. So there's a few hours of that. And then I try and be a good husband for a few hours before bed. And then, to just make sure my wife doesn't hate me too much before I do it all again the next day.
Yeah, 100%. I think that narrative really lights me up. Like, I know... in the past, I shit a lot on like 9 to 5 and how rigid it seemed. But I think I'm starting to realize like that being entrepreneurial is probably even harder. Like the hours that you have to put into something that you're passionate about is tenfold, I would say, because you don't have anyone feeding you anything to do. You have to come up with these things on the whim, and you have to coordinate or liaise with, say, Cal, your business partner. It's one of those things that like I'm willing to do it, but I don't know. Like what is your outlook on entrepreneurship?
It becomes a lot easier when it's for you. I've worked some other jobs in between everything else, and you're kind of limited to what you can achieve at most businesses. I've always kind of had the mindset, like even boxing, I would wake up before and if I felt like I'm working for myself or on myself, it doesn't feel as strenuous or like I'm wasting my time or anything like that. Obviously you need to realize when it's time to like chill out a little bit. Like when we opened Emerge, I was working for my dad's business and Emerge, and I was getting like 3 hours of sleep most nights, and I burnt out completely. It was like an absolute shit show. But at the moment, I feel like I have some kind of a balance. But it's also like I wouldn't make coffees at a cafe for 8 hours a day, but it's my cafe, so it doesn't feel like it feels like I'm investing into the cafe's future by doing the hard yards now. So when we opened Emerge, we were open from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. like every day. So a lot of days it was like, I would get there at 5 a.m. Either Cal or Jackson would get there with like tag team, and then someone else would get there, and then normally after work I'm going back and then doing that like late shift or, yeah, but like it's what's necessary for your business. And especially in the early days where, you know, you don't have that much resources to pay other people to do it or anything like that, you have to put the hard yards in. So it doesn't, you know, it might be more work than a 9 to 5, but it is much more rewarding than a 9 to 5.
Definitely. And then there's obviously the counter argument, and I'll play devil's advocate because, you know, it's incredible to be working for yourself, but it's like, how do you motivate people to want to work under you as well? Have you cracked the code yet? Because you have some incredible people under you, right? Like Jazz, Drew.
Yeah. Well, I think it's all just like, at least I find it's all relationships. Like one thing that we do at Emerge, especially is, and Cal's fantastic at this. He drives a lot of these meetings, but we do like a bi-weekly meeting with everyone. And although it's like getting a lot of information about what's going on in the business and everything, there's also questions about like, what can we do for you know, any of the stuff. So if they need any education, any training, if there's any problems that are arising, we try to address it pretty quickly.
Absolutely. So, how do you manage that relationship as like a manager, but also being a mate? Like I've seen incredible people do it at the retail job that I work at, where there's been a pretty obvious barrier between the two of us. Like there's that sort of, I'm your manager at the end of the day, but I'm still here to listen to you, and I'm still here to be a really good friend for you as well. But there's still that divide. Like, how do you manage that?
Yeah, look, it's probably something that I haven't figured out completely just yet. I think that it, you know, with Kent, I've known Kent since prep. So if there's something that, you know, I need to speak to him about, it's like, okay, look, I need to speak to you seriously. Even with Jazz and Drew, it's kind of like, look, I kind of don't try to come across like I'm your boss, do what I say. But like, look, I'll try and bring it to their attention. Like, look, I've heard this. Maybe this is some concern. How, like, first of all, what's your point of view on the situation? And second of all, is there anything I can do to like help with this situation? I think if you're always willing to help and always willing to have, you know, your team's back, it just will foster a better environment for everyone to work in.
100%. Yeah, it's about creating that trust, I think, and being able to establish the idea that you are coming from a good place and that you want this place to improve as a whole as well. It's one of those things, particularly in leadership positions, a lot of people start to get a bit closer with you as well. So yeah, I've always found it interesting as to how people do manage that sort of relationship between.
Yeah, and it's also, this just sticks out. Like one thing that Cal always says is like, bad news doesn't get better. So, you know, let's just say, you know, someone makes a mistake. I would rather be someone like the boss that you can approach and say, look, Jules, I fucked up. This and this. And me go, oh, all right, well, let's figure out how to fix this. Not like you feel like you need to hide that information and then I'll find out anyway. And now it's 2 weeks on and there's a lot more to fix in this period of time. So like whenever problems arise, as long as you're approachable and you can, you know, work as a team to fix the problem, I think that also just encourages everyone.
100%. On the topic of relationships, you're married. I was sussing out your ring before and we were talking about the rubber training rings that they brought out onto the market.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a bit about, am I even fucking recording? I am. Okay, good. Oh my God, I almost shit myself. Oh my God. Talk to us about Tara.
Yep.
You brought in, what's your little puppy?
Maple.
Maple. You brought in Maple, and I've never seen someone more disinterested in their own dog. But I'm the same with my dogs as well. But
yeah, no. Maple, she's all right. No, she's
Can you
adorable.
describe Maple and describe your other dog?
Axel.
Maple and Axel.
Yeah. Describe Maple. Maple is a 3 kilo toy cavoodle. She is adorable, but she is also the bane of my existence. She likes to keep me awake. Like whenever I think, okay, I've got a good chunk of sleep I can get tonight, she'll jump on the bed or she'll start eating some kibble. And like she likes to do this thing where she'll run to her bowl and get one piece of kibble out, and then she'll run back to where we are and she'll eat it. So she'll run next to the bed and start crunching the kibble or all this sort of stuff. So she got a real attitude problem.
Just spite you.
Yeah, she does it. Like if I don't need to get a good night's sleep, I'll sleep through and she'll like not make a peep. But it's like the more important this night of sleep is, the more tricks she has up her sleeve. And Axel, he's a beautiful dog. He's my.
I love it. I had to. Sorry, we're talking about dogs on the podcast, but like I had to bring this in. I love the preference.
Yeah, no, he's a beautiful dog. He's currently at my parents' because we're living in an apartment and they have some acreage. He's a very big Rottweiler, but I'm scheming every day of how to get him back and get rid of Maple. So we'll do the old switch soon.
Justice for Maple.
We should put a photo up of both of them and see have a poll of who should we save, who should live with me.
Who should live with Julez? I was gonna ask, like, what's it like balancing the relationship that you have? You work these long and extensive hours, and get back to be, I guess, the best possible husband that you can be for those couple of hours. Mm-hmm. What's it like navigating that?
It's probably something I'm not good at. Especially early days with the merge, I didn't switch off. I couldn't switch off. It was all new. Everything was all exciting. We weren't married just yet. We got married in January, and we were planning. This is how oblivious I was to the whole situation. I was planning to open a merge 2 weeks before my wedding, right? Tara was like, that's not a good idea. And luckily, it kind of fell through. We had some issues getting the actual lease with the old tenants, and it's a long story anyway. But even on my honeymoon, I was getting phone calls from Cal, and we were signing documents and on the phone to the lawyers trying to get the keys and trying to get a merge open and everything. But once it was open, I would talk to Cal for like 10 hours a day at the start of like everything we needed to do. And then I would go home and I would be like, I need to do this, this, and this. And I couldn't switch off. So thankfully Tara's amazing and she's like really supportive and she's involved in the businesses now. She runs all the social medias for the companies. So I've kind of figured out how I can actually see her while I'm working. So like at a normal day at the cafe, she's normally working at the cafe as well. So at least like if there is a little bit of downtime, we can have a chat and touch base and all this sort of stuff. But she is amazingly supportive. And, you know, without her, I wouldn't have been able to have opened both of the businesses. And she kind of does push me into... I think at the start it was very hard for Tara because she's not like a gym goer.
Yeah.
Like she likes Pilates now, but she's like naturally just has a good body and doesn't really need to train. But when I said, I want to open a gym, I don't think she could understand how important the gym had been in our lives. And when, even with the cafe, so like with the gym, it was like a little bit more like, I don't understand it, but like, if this is going to make you happy, I'll support you like however I can. With the cafe, I could sort of see that, but very quickly Tara was like, look, if this is like one of your dreams, like go do it. She's like, I'll support you with whatever you want to do. So it's been amazing because of her attitude more so, but she's really, really supportive and it's made a really good team.
Yeah. Shout out Tara. It's incredible that you've been able to integrate her into both businesses as well. Can you talk to us about early days when it wasn't necessarily the case and where she did have to look from the offset and not necessarily have the same investment or passion or interest in the projects that you were starting?
Yeah. So when we... when we had just got married and Emerge opened, Tara was doing her last year at uni. And so she was studying a lot, and I was working at Emerge and at my at Coffee Co, at my dad's coffee company. And because I was working so much and the social media was my responsibility, I would like get home after whatever time, and then I'd be like, okay, I need to share everyone's stories, and I need to reply to messages and all this sort of stuff. So even though I was home, I was still working, and it was kind of like taking away from, Tara's time. And then she was studying public relations. Yeah, I think that's right. Public relations. So like to run social medias essentially. And when she graduated and she had a little bit more time, we were like, well, what do you think? Like, this is your field of expertise. Like, what do you think about how we're running Instagram? She's like, yeah, I probably wouldn't do that. And I was like, okay, like why? And how can I do it better? And then eventually it was like, you just do
this is your little baby.
Yeah,
now.
you do this. And even like, I don't really run my own Instagram at the moment. Like, I'm terrible at writing back. So like with text messages or Instagram or whatever, emails or whatever it is, I'll get like however many during the day, and I'll just like, Tara, I need to write back to this, and this. And she'll just like write up this professional, paragraph of whatever it is I need to say and shoot it off to everyone. So yeah, no, it's been, her time at university was not wasted. So
yeah, definitely not. Far out. Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. And you two met through the friendships that you guys had.
Yeah, so we actually met. So we met probably, I think it was like 8 months before I had met Jackson and all that. Beth had put a photo up at Easter, and Tara was in that photo, and I said to Beth, that girl kneeling down is a 10, and then I did the little love heart emoji eyes, and and I kind of thought that would be about it. I didn't really expect too much back and forth from that, but I think Tara thought the same about me, and we ended up going on a couple of dates, and I fell in love pretty quickly, and then it was it was a little bit of cat and mouse for 12 months, but here we are. So.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
I love love.
Yeah.
Love is awesome.
Yeah.
So good. Oh.
Yeah.
Naughty or nice?
Yes.
Let's get into that.
Yep.
Touch on Emerge, touch on your upbringing. Now this new cafe, been open 5 weeks in a place that you didn't believe would do so well, or as well as it has been. Talk to us about it. Where did the idea of a cafe come about, and what's its specialty as well?
Yep. So, I guess my sister's a qualified chef, and I used to make coffees at like all the ICN events. We had a coffee cart, Kenny and I, and we were doing that for probably about 6 or 7 years, and we always kind of, or at least my sister and I were always like, oh, it'd be cool to have a restaurant and it'd be cool to have a cafe. And like even growing up when we were teenagers, we worked at the same cafes and all this sort of stuff. Then we kind of put it on the back burner, and she's got another business, and I was worried about the gym and all this sort of stuff. So a cafe kind of never really seemed like a reality. And then we stumbled across this, and it was too good of an opportunity to kind of. Yeah, I didn't want to die wondering about this one, so we just went all in.
Did you call her and say it's time as well?
She actually messaged me. Yeah, so it was a little bit of a flip on this one. She messaged me the photos of some of the layout of the cafe, and she was like, do you want to open a cafe? And I was like, yeah, for sure, this is great. Like, where is it? And when she told me where it was, I said no straight away. Yeah. And she was like, trust me, it's busy, go down. So I actually lived not too far from there at all. And I would go at like different times of the days and on the weekends and stuff. And because there's the Coles right next to it, it is like, there's a lot of foot traffic. So then it's just about like, how do we attract the people to the cafe?
Absolutely. I guess the cafe culture in Melbourne is very, very extensive. Like every corner or strip of shops that you go past, there's probably 2 or 3 cafes where they are. What sets you apart?
What sets us apart? Well, there's the concept of the cafe. So naughty or nice, it's a little bit of a play. So one of the things that I experienced when I was competing is I could actually never go to cafes with my friends because I could never judge how much calories or macros were in the food. So with the naughty or nice, the name, there's obviously your standard cafe menu and everything like that. And you've got like your normal desserts, not calorie controlled or anything like that. But then there will be the options of having, higher protein, calorie controlled meals and shakes and all this sort of stuff there as well. So if people are trying to diet or trying to reach fitness goals, they can still do that and go out with their friends and not feel like they have to miss out.
Incredible. And you've got a qualified chef to help you, I guess, concoct all the different ingredients and recipes and like you said, jazz up the things that you were already cooking at home to make it more appealable and marketable to a particular audience. So I love that so much.
Yeah. Well, no, she's a great cook. I'm not sure if you've had any of the brownies or... Yeah, well, at the open days, we've had the brownies and all that sort of stuff, and everyone's loved them. They were all her brownies. So,
did she make the cupcakes as well for Emerge's birthday?
Yes.
Oh
no, the
birthday.
cupcake day.
National
Cupcake.
No,
yeah,
it's not your birthday yet, is it? Has it been?
We've had our first birthday.
You've had your first.
Well, we're almost 2.
I know, literally.
Yeah.
Far out.
Yeah. So but she does a lot of majority of the baking and stuff she does, and she did like a lot of the focaccias and stuff at the powerlifting competition, and she can't do much right, but she can cook. So
always gonna throw the jab in there, Jules.
I did say to her, I said, "Oh, you watch out what I say about you on this podcast." So,
what's the relationship like? I guess there's always conversation about involving family in business. Like sometimes people advise against it because I guess like humans can be greedy little bastards, and businesses do fall through as a result of the greed and the lust for money and capitalizing on opportunities. But what's the relationship been like?
I think it's pretty good. We worked together at my dad's company for probably 10 years together, and my brother as well. And so like, I think opening the cafe with my sister, I was a little bit worried because everyone always says, don't go into business with friends or family or anything like that. But at the same time, like we kind of just had a conversation, like what are your expectations from this cafe? Like, and we kind of set down the foundations and like how the structure of how it would be run and everything from the start. And also knowing my sister, and I feel like knowing me as well, I don't feel like either of us are too greedy. Like, I don't need to live in a 10-bedroom mansion. Like, as long as I got enough money to pay the bills, I'm sweet. Have some nice things here and there. Like, and my sister's the same. So we're pretty, like, we're not very extravagant. Like, we don't need to have all the money. But, like, yeah. So I'm not really worried about her ripping me off.
Hope not.
I was a bad business venture if I was. But, yeah, I'm not too stressed.
Nah, that's so fair. I think, like, from that, the theme of communication is so apparent. Like being able to just sit down and clearly outline, okay, like this is our why, and this is like why we want to go into it, and this is what I expect from you, and how we're going to go about it as well. Like those, what is it? The 6 questions: when, where, how, why, what, something like that. Very important questions to ask when going into anything, really. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah. No, and she's as I said, we've been pretty close growing up, and so it was kind of a no-brainer. Making the decision. So at least the trust and the foundation, and we can understand each other's work ethics, and she works just as hard as I do, and hours that she puts in. So it was no worries on my end.
Definitely. You touched on the idea that there's the calorie controlled aspect of naughty or nice, and the idea that when you were doing your bodybuilding shows, going out and socializing with people wasn't necessarily something that you could lean on all the time because you're obviously on a strict diet, training really hard as well. What was your bodybuilding venture like?
Right. So I competed 3 times to date. I don't know if there'll be a 4th or not, but We'll
come
just
back.
tease that little comeback there. Nah, I was so before COVID, I was getting ready for my 4th show, and then COVID happened, and I was always planning to retire to have that last show. But I competed my first show at the IFBB VIX in 2015, season B 2015, and it was incredible. Even though I had boxed and I had lost a lot of weight and all this sort of stuff, I had never been in like, stage condition by any, not even close. So it was kind of something that I had always wanted to do, and I finally just got done. And that was a very, very hard prep, but it was so rewarding to actually see the finished picture, and like I achieved that. And I think that also changed my mindset with like everything. Like you put in the work, you get the result. It's like that simple. There are going to be some situations that occur and make that hard, but so in terms of bodybuilding, I did my first show. I didn't come dead last, but I was in the last call out. I didn't actually get a call out. There was a few of us that didn't get a call out. So I had prepped for almost a year, and I stood at the back of the stage for about 20 minutes, and then I walked off stage with my little medal, and I was over the moon for just getting there. But that kind of ignited this passion and this love for the sport. So straight away, pretty much the next day, I spoke to my coach, and I was like, all right, Dryden, let's a shout out Dryden there. It's like, let's go again. So let's map out what do we need to, bring up, and what do we need to do to have a chance at, beating the guys that we went up against. And I competed again 9 months ago, and I was drastically improved in that show.
9 months after?
9 months after the first one.
Yeah.
So we thought it was going to be a little bit more time.
Yeah, what's the normal sort of span between meets and stuff?
I would probably, like, once you're in shape, I would probably go like show to show, like week to week, if you could.
Yeah.
So if you had gotten into shape and there was like 3 or 4 competitions that were in the same season, like that's normal for people to kind of try and peak for one but still do the other ones.
I have seen that actually. Like Lee Lim, he did like back-to-back shows and sort of traveled around Australia and did that. I just wanted to jump in as well. I think it's incredible that you were over the moon for getting that little medal and like making it on stage. I think social media warps our perception of like being number one all the time. Because I think it was Greg Doucette, and he was talking about CBum, and he's obviously 5 times now. And he was saying how CBum, like if he wants to retire, he can, but there's no point of him going if he's not going to win. Yeah. And that mentality, I don't know, there's like pros and cons to it, because obviously he's achieved the 5 Mr. Olympias. But I don't know, I wanted to get your thoughts on that sort of mentality. It's like, would you, how am I going to word this? Like that mindset of, well, I've prepped this far, I might as well win. Yeah. What do you think about it?
It obviously different for different situations. For myself, I was like, I had got up to like 150 kilos at one point. I, was obese. Just making it to a bodybuilding stage was the win. That was it. Like I didn't need to do more. I ticked the box. That's it. I think for everyone's first time, probably don't put the pressure of even placing like in the equation, because you could be an amazing athlete and rock up and, be up against the next Phil Heath. And, you might, if you have this expectation that you need to achieve first place to be successful, and then you come up against, someone who is, just a freak or better than you, or, is a little bit more advanced or along the journey than you, then you can get a lot of negative emotions and feel rejected and bad about yourself. So it's not necessary for the first one. It's kind of like, it's like what Gemma says in terms of creating content. You need to do it to get good at it. Like you don't know where you're at, and you can't get good at it unless you do it. So I would like, if you haven't competed before, I would, and you did want to compete, just get up there and see how you go. And, obviously train hard and train like you want to win. But if you don't win, it's not the end of the world. Like at least you can see, at least you can go through the experience and think, okay, was this for me? Was this not for me? Can I improve and increase my rankings? Or, is there too much of a gap? Or is there, how much time and money am I going to invest into it? And you can assess the situation, because you can't get a fair assessment looking at, progress photos and then comparing that to someone on stage.
Absolutely. What is your opinion on posting updates after updates after updates? Because I think when I was talking to Jackson as well, he mentioned that when he was prepping, everyone was in his ear saying he was looking like the next C-bum, and they were telling him all this like inflated shit that eventually got to his head, because he started believing what other people were saying. And I think the idea of social media and documenting is so beautiful, but there are so many people who aren't qualified, who don't know what they're talking about, who admire this person and inflate their ego as a result.
Yeah, 100%. I think in this day and age, it's very easy to... I mean, if someone doesn't understand bodybuilding and they see a bodybuilder, it doesn't matter how good or bad the bodybuilder is, they're going to be amazing to that person's, in that person's eyes. I think there's like pros and cons. If you're like a professional and you're making money and that's how you make your money, well, obviously, yeah, put the photos up, go for your life. But I think... in my personal experience, my first 2 competitions, I didn't put any photos up. Not while I was prepping. Or if I did, I would put maybe 3 up. I put 3 up in my second competition because I was just like over the moon with the photos. But I still didn't tell anyone I was prepping. It was like a secret prep, and then I just competed and posted the results. And then I would post all my photos after the prep, because I was always worried that people would get in my head. And it's like my old training partner, Lucky, he used to always say, yeah, people will say like you're going to do well and all this, and they mean it, but they don't know who you're going up against. In my last comp, I put regular photos up. Maybe like once a week or once every 2 weeks, I would have a nice carb up, I would get a nice juicy pump, and the photos would look wild, and I was like, all right, I'm going to put this up. And it was the least serious I took any of my comps. I would get, hundreds of likes and people saying, yeah, you're looking fantastic and all this. And as soon as I would see that, I took the foot off the pedal. It was like, okay, I'm doing everything right. But if I hadn't have posted those photos, I wouldn't have that affirmation, and I would have... Is affirmation the right word though?
I think, or the confirmation of...
Confirmation?
Or like the validation.
Validation
from people. Yeah, 100%. I was actually having a chat to Chris Yip, my coach.
Yep.
Like, incredible deadlifter, 5 times body weight, like,
yeah,
fucking incredible person. And I was having this chat about him because I was like, what is your thoughts on when people are always complimenting you about your lifts and everything? And he's like, I fucking hate it. I hate it so much. Well, in his Chris way, if you've met Chris, like, how he can be. But he's like, yeah, I really don't like it, because then like it makes me feel that I need to overperform as well. So there's that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, the way I see it personally is you're putting pressure on yourself. Like, if I don't put this photo up and I don't tell you I'm competing, and then I go and do this competition, I've already exceeded your expectations because you didn't think I was competing. But now I've done a bodybuilding comp. So if I put photos up all the time telling you, oh, I'm competing, I'm doing this, or this is my progress photos, and people are like, this guy looks really good, he's going to win. Now, if I do anything but win, I've let someone down. And I've let myself down, and I haven't lived up to expectations. So personally, like, progress photos for other, like, if they're just progress photos, is like, cool, like, post them. I think it gets a little bit murky with competing, just in terms of how it alters the mindset. But then you have some freaks who are like, can post their progress photos and it doesn't affect them at all. They don't care. It's just like, I'm doing the work and this is it. So I guess it really does come down to the individual as well.
Definitely. So would you say you're on the bandwagon of just like hiding, well, not really hiding it, but just closing off any expectations for yourself for others, sorry, but just like working hard behind the scenes, or?
I think it's always, I prefer that approach. You do all the work, do it in silence, and then let the results speak for themselves. Still take the photos and post them after, but yeah, that's my personal preference.
100%. Jules, what's next for you?
That's a great question. What's next for me?
You've opened a gym, you've opened a cafe.
Yeah.
What is next?
What's next? I think, at the moment we're looking at expanding the coaching a lot more. We've got some new programs coming out. We've got some new ways that we're adding a little bit more value to the gym membership now, as you know, we're not far off capping out the membership. So we've got some more Kickstart programs and some more ways that we can help more people than just our members.
Incredible. And for yourself?
For myself, I guess we're just getting back into some consistent training at the moment, and then we'll see where that leads next year. What else? I guess just want to get the gym and the coaching and the cafe firing and get into some good shape again, and then see where that leads.
100%. Where can people find Naughty or Nice if they haven't heard of it before? And I definitely have a location there, but where can people find you?
In terms of social media?
In terms of Naughty or Nice?
Oh, the cafe?
Media.
Yeah, so we're in Ringwood Square,
yeah.
Ringwood Square Shopping Centre, and we're in between. So we're inside the shopping centre, in between the Coles and Bunnings.
Brilliant. And where can people find you on social media?
Naughty or Nice Cafe on Instagram, and Naughty or Nice Cafe on Facebook.
Incredible. Jules, it's been an incredible chat, one of the longer ones, which is awesome. And you've been an incredible storyteller. I think like the idea of your upbringing shaping you into the person that you are today, like the idea of growing up overweight and having those insecurities and having those people in your corner to support you. I think they've managed to continue to be in your corner and bring you really good opportunities in terms of business. And you've shown us that education doesn't necessarily matter. It's how you apply yourself and how you're able to exceed your own values so that you can create something of your own and put in all the hard work. So if there's anything that you want to leave us on, now's your time.
There is actually. I actually had a couple questions for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty,
so
Uno reverse card.
This is a little bit of what we touched on before about just starting something and then seeing, learning the skill and getting better. So when you asked me to come on the podcast, I thought I would do a bit of a deep dive into the podcast. And there was an interesting episode 2.
Oh, God. Oh, no. He's done... Oh, fuck. I should probably hide some of these episodes. Go on.
And I was just curious as to why you don't have the trigger warning anymore and if your opinion on vegans have changed.
Trigger warning will... I was actually told by one of my mates to not put a trigger warning.
Yeah.
And I guess if you want to click off, you can click off.
Yeah.
Just as much as if you want to unfollow, you can unfollow. I sit on here with people like yourself and chat about all things that are now career-based, which I don't know how veganism plays a role into it now, so maybe it avoids it. Look, I have a really close friend now who's vegan, and he's doing incredible things with his body, and by all means, I love it. I still hold the stance where it's like, if you're throwing shit on paintings to get your like little, what do you call it? Like union or group out in the limelight. I think like that's a bit frustrating for society, or like tying yourself down to the road. Have you seen that?
Yeah. Yep.
Those things, I think that's really reaching, and it's just unproductive to society. So maybe steer clear from that, but I won't judge you for the food that you eat.
Yeah, no, great. No, I did have a bit of a deep dive. I listened to episode 1 and 2, and I thought to myself, wow, he's come a long way with his podcast.
Absolutely.
So good work. And No, good work, and I think it's really encouraging as well. With touching on what Gemma said again is like creating content, you're going to get better doing it, and I think you're like a testament to that. So good stuff on the podcast, and I'm looking forward to many more.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, far out. I'm like scared of diving into episode 1. If I'm being honest, I feel like I'm always like, oh, you should probably listen just to see like how far you've come. But maybe I'll do that in episode 100. Who knows?
Yeah.
Jules, yeah, really appreciate your time. I'm sure it will be on for many episodes in the future. But be sure to follow @Life with Them podcast, and we'll catch you in the next episode.